You know, usually when we look at a complex system like, say, a smartphone or a car engine, we just kind of assume there's a manual for it.
Right. There's a set of rules.
Exactly. There's a documented set of rules. You press a button, the screen lights up, you turn the key, the engine turns over. It's, pure cause and effect. It's engineered to be predictable.
And that predictability is really comforting, right? Because you know exactly what inputs are required to get the specific outputs you want.
Yeah, but then, and this is where it gets stressful, you walk into a job interview and suddenly it feels like someone just threw the entire manual out the window.
Oh, for sure. It completely goes out the window.
You're sitting across a table from a total stranger, you're trying to read their mind, carefully managing your breathing, and just hoping you don't say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's this universally stressful experience because it feels um, less like a logical system and way more like an unpredictable, high-stakes performance art piece.
Which is totally understandable. For a lot of people, that perceived lack of a manual is just entirely paralyzing.
Oh, absolutely.
We treat interviews like these mysterious, totally organic conversations where our entire career hangs on the unpredictable whim of the person holding the resume. We focus way too much on the anxiety rather than the actual architecture of the conversation.
Which is exactly why we're tackling this today. What if it doesn't actually have to be that way?
Right. What if there is a manual?
Exactly. What if we could look at the modern job interview not as a terrifying mystery, but as a completely hackable system? That is our mission for this deep dive. You, the listener, have handed us an incredible stack of source materials to help us really deconstruct how this works.
And it is a fantastic stack of materials.
It really is. We're pulling insights from career strategist Cass Thompson, communication expert Rachel from Rachel's English, and we also have a couple of incredibly detailed mock interviews featuring professionals in the IT and digital media spaces.
It's a remarkably cohesive set of sources, too, because when you synthesize the advice from the communication experts with the actual transcripts of those mock interviews, you stop seeing random questions.
All right, you start seeing the matrix a little bit.
Exactly. You start seeing a highly distinct pattern. The mechanics behind the curtain suddenly become visible.
Yes. So, we are going to decode how to craft the perfect professional story, how to navigate those incredibly tricky conflict questions without sounding, defensive, and how to master the silent signals you send before you even open your mouth.
hmm
Okay, let's unpack this, wife.
We really have to start at the true beginning. And the true beginning of an interview doesn't happen when they finally ask you to talk about yourself.
Right.
The interview starts the exact second you cross the threshold into the building. The sources place a massive emphasis on the silent pitch, the body language and professional stance that essentially frame your entire evaluation.
So let's talk about the physical mechanics of that first impression, because the advice we usually hear, like give a firm handshake, sit up straight, remember to smile, can feel like incredibly generic platitudes.
It sounds like advice from your grandparents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's actually a much deeper psychological mechanism at play here, isn't there? It's not just about corporate politeness.
No, not at all. What's fascinating here is the underlying tribal signaling taking place in those first few seconds. Humans are just hardwired to assess threats instantly.
Wow. So it's literal survival instincts.
Pretty much. When you offer a firm handshake and the sources note the standard is pretty universal now, right hand forward, firm but not, bone crushing. And when you maintain an open, upright posture, you are actively triggering trust receptors in the interviewer's brain.
Huh.
You are subconsciously categorizing yourself as an ally rather than a threat before you even articulate a single word.
So you're essentially managing their cognitive state right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And the sources note that facial expressions play heavily into this too, though it is highly dependent on the cultural context of the company.
Oh, absolutely. Culture plays a huge role.
Like in U.S. corporate culture, bringing an engaged, smiling, highly energized demeanor is practically mandatory. It signals enthusiasm and approachability.
Right. You have to look thrilled to be there.
Yeah. But in other cultures, maintaining that level of intense smiling might actually be interpreted as a lack of seriousness. So a more reserved approach is favored.
You definitely have to calibrate to your audience.
Yeah.
But regardless of the culture, you are inevitably going to face the dreaded small talk.
The weather, the traffic.
Yeah, exactly. They will ask if you found the office okay, how the traffic was, what you did over the weekend. And candidates so often dismiss this as polite filler. They just try to rush through it to get to the real interview.
I used to do exactly that. I just wanted to get to the resume stuff.
Hmm.
But based on these sources, I've actually started thinking of small talk as the warm-up stretch before a really heavy workout.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, if you just jump straight into the heavy lifting of complex behavioral questions without establishing a baseline rapport first, you're going to pull a conversational muscle. Small talk sets the rhythm of the interaction.
It really does, but I'd actually take that a step further. They aren't just stretching with you. They're literally auditioning you for the in-between moments of the job.
Oh, wait, what do you mean?
Employers use this casual chatter to project into the future. They're trying to visualize what it will be like to wait in a Zoom lobby with you in total silence for 3 minutes, or what the dynamic will be like sitting next to you in a conference room every Tuesday morning for the next 3 years.
Wow. They are checking to see if you can navigate the mundane without making it incredibly awkward.
Precisely. Can you be a normal person in a normal situation?
And sometimes, candidates use humor to navigate that tension. In one of our mock interviews, a candidate named Rachel is asked the classic trap question, "What is your greatest weakness?" And before giving her real answer, she just deadpans chocolate.
Which is a very deliberate moment of levity.
Right, it's a nice little icebreaker. But the sources are careful to put strict guardrails around that tactic. Using humor strategically shows high emotional intelligence, but it should be strictly limited to 1 or 2 moments.
Yeah, you don't want to overdo it.
Exactly. If you rely on it too heavily, the cognitive framing shifts. The interviewer stops seeing you as a highly competent professional with a good personality, and they start seeing you as the class clown who's just trying to deflect from a lack of substance.
The balance is literally everything. You warm up the room, you establish a professional physical presence that signals trust, and you show a controlled spark of personality.
And then the real work begins.
Right. Once that foundation is set, the transition happens. The small talk concludes, and the interviewer will invariably deploy the most common, yet somehow most paralyzing opening prompt in the history of business. Tell me about yourself.
Oh man, it's such a broad, open-ended prompt that candidates just panic.
They completely freeze.
Yeah, they feel the need to summarize their entire existence chronologically, starting from like their high school graduation, or they swing the complete opposite way and overshare weird personal details.
According to Cass Thompson, the career strategist in our slices, this is where you need ultimate structural discipline. Your answer should be a tightly controlled 1 to 3 minute pitch.
Just 1 to 3 minutes.
That's it. It is a curated overview of your professional titles and your specific achievements, and she is very clear on this absolutely no personal trivia.
So no talking about my cats.
No cats. They are not evaluating your favorite local coffee shop or your weekend hobbies at this stage. It has to stay strictly professional.
And the brilliant part of Thompson's strategy is how you close that pitch, because so many candidates finish summarizing their resume, and then they just trail off, creating this incredibly awkward silence where the interviewer has to scramble to find the next question.
Yes, the dreaded, so yeah, that's me.
Right. But Thompson says you must always end your answer by stating exactly why you are in the room today. You say something like, "And I believe my background in digital media makes this role the perfect next step for me to drive growth for your team."
It acts as a clean handoff right back to the interviewer. You are reducing their cognitive load by giving them a very natural transition into the core of the interview.
Which brings us to the core itself, and the ultimate structural framework for behavioral interviews, the STAR method.
Ah, yes. Good old STAR.
Now, we've all heard of the STAR method, right? Situation, task, action, result. It is the oldest trick in the book for answering any question that starts with, "Tell me about a time when." But the sources reveal a massive trap most people fall into when applying it.
And it usually happens right at the very beginning of the story.
Exactly.
The trap is context. Many candidates completely forget to explain why the situation or task was actually difficult in the first place.
Right, they just state a fact.
Yeah. If you simply tell an interviewer, "I had to audit a quarterly report on a Tuesday," that isn't a challenge, that's just a job description. But if you explain, "I had to audit a quarterly report on a Tuesday, but our primary data system crashed on Monday, wiping out half our metrics, and the client was threatening to walk," well, now you have established actual stakes.
It's like the STAR method acts almost like a funnel. You start with the wide, established context at the top, the situation and task. Then you filter down into the action. And this is crucial. It has to be what you did, not what the broader team did.
Yes. Own your actions.
And finally, you force all that context down into a single, concentrated drop of impact at the bottom, the result.
Let's analyze how this works in practice using Emily. She's the digital media candidate from our mock interviews.
Right, the one with the tight deadline.
Exactly. She's asked to describe a time she overcame a challenge. The situation she establishes is a sudden, drastically tightened client deadline for a major ad campaign, so the context is instantly high pressure.
Okay, so what was her action?
The action she takes isn't just, working harder. She actively reorganizes the team's production schedule, reprioritizes the delivery tasks, and specifically steps out of her normal role to help a junior colleague write ad copy so they don't fall behind.
She details the actual operational steps and the result.
They delivered the campaign on time. She notes it wasn't a completely flawless process, but the client was retained, and her internal team expressed gratitude for her calming leadership. It's a textbook funnel.
It really is. And we see that same precision with Daniel, the IT project manager.
Yeah.
His situation was managing a massive legacy to cloud migration.
Right. And let's quickly translate that jargon for anyone outside of IT.
Yeah, please do.
A legacy to cloud migration basically means taking old, fragile computer systems running on physical servers down in a basement and moving all that data to modern internet-based platforms. It is notoriously messy.
Highly messy. And Daniel's specific challenge was that stakeholders had completely conflicting priorities, right?
Okay.
Leadership wanted the migration finished immediately to save money, but the engineering team wanted more time to ensure they didn't, break the entire system in the process.
A classic standoff.
So his action was stepping in and implementing a phased delivery plan. He broke the project into smaller, manageable chunks and set up weekly risk review sessions to force leadership and engineering to actually talk to each other.
And the result was minimized system downtime and vastly improved cross-departmental collaboration.
It's a great story, but I do want to push back on this framework just a little bit here.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a candidate is rigidly running every single answer through this exact filter, situation, task, action, result,
Don't they risk sounding robotic? I mean, if I'm an interviewer, I don't want to feel like I'm listening to someone read off a teleprompter.
if we connect this to the bigger picture, the flaw isn't actually in the framework itself. The flaw is in how candidates practice it. The STAR method isn't a rigid script that you write out paragraph by paragraph and commit to memory.
So you shouldn't be memorizing it word for word.
Definitely not. It's a set of psychological guardrails to keep your brain from rambling when the adrenaline hits. The sources explicitly advise against memorizing full sentences. Instead, you practice what they call free talking.
Oh, interesting. So you're building fluency, not reciting lines. Exactly. You jot down the 3 or 4 key bullet points for your story, the core situation, the specific action you took, and the final metric or result. Then you practice speaking those points out loud in different ways.
Like in front of a mirror.
Or record yourself on your phone. You listen back and you build muscle memory for the concepts. That ensures your delivery stays completely conversational, while the mental guardrails keep your narrative structured.
That distinction makes a lot of sense. Now, it is relatively easy to use the STAR method to talk about your victories, like Emily saving the ad campaign or Daniel navigating the IT migration.
Sure, everybody loves talking about their wins.
Right. But an employer's real objective is to see what happens when your armor cracks. They want to know how you behave when things inevitably go wrong. So you've proved you can structure a success story. But then the interview quickly pivots to assessing your flaws.
And this introduces the most notorious trap in the entire interview ecosystem, the "what is your greatest weakness?" question.
Oh, it is universally despised.
Because it feels like a trick.
It does. And the default instinct for almost everyone is to offer a disguised strength. We say things like, "I'm simply too much of a perfectionist," or "I just care too much about delivering high quality."
Which interviewers recognize instantly as a complete deflection. It signals a severe lack of self-awareness.
So what's the actual hack here?
The strategy outlined in our sources is to offer a genuine, actual weakness. However, you must carefully select a weakness that is not directly tied to the core competencies required for the role. And the critical mechanism here, the way you actually hack the question, is to immediately follow up your admission with the specific actionable steps you are taking to improve it.
Why does that two-part structure work so effectively, though?
From a psychological standpoint, it completely shifts the interviewer's cognitive framing. By immediately offering the solution, they stop evaluating the flaw itself, and they start evaluating your self-awareness and your problem-solving initiative.
Ah, you are showing them how you manage your own shortcomings.
Precisely. Let's look at Cass Thompson's example. She suggests sharing a weakness like being overly opinionated.
That's a brave one to admit.
It is. She explains that in fast-paced meetings, her brain fires so quickly that she wants to answer every single question immediately. That's a real flaw. It stifles team collaboration. But her improvement step is that she now physically writes down her thoughts during meetings, forcing herself to wait and listen to others before she jumps in.
That's brilliant. Or look at Rachel's example.
Hmm.
She admits to struggling with public speaking stage fright. She thrives in small team meetings, but addressing a large audience triggers anxiety for her.
A very relatable weakness.
Very. And her actionable improvement step was actively joining a public speaking group to expose herself to that fear and practice managing the anxiety.
Both examples demonstrate vulnerability, but it is highly controlled vulnerability. Neither flaw disqualifies them from the day-to-day requirements of the job, and both highlight a proactive drive for self-improvement.
And that same principle of controlled vulnerability applies directly to how you discuss your past failures. Let's return to Emily for a second. The interviewer asks her to describe a time she failed.
And she doesn't dodge the question.
Not at all. She admits that she once sent out an event invitation to a massive customer base with a completely wrong time printed on it.
Oof. That's a highly visible operational error for anyone in marketing.
It's a significant headache. Customers showed up at the wrong time, and her manager had to issue a formal apology. But her answer focuses entirely on the recovery. Her manager told her, what matters is what you do next.
That's great leadership, honestly.
Right. And Emily's action wasn't just to apologize and hide at her desk. She fundamentally changed how she worked. She built a comprehensive new pre-flight checklist for all outbound emails, and she instituted a new operational process where a peer had to literally sign off on the times and dates before anything was sent.
So she transformed a personal failure into a robust operational safeguard.
Exactly.
And we see a similar level of maturity when handling interpersonal pushback. Daniel was asked how he deals with difficult stakeholders. He described a scenario where a stakeholder constantly tried to change the project scope, which means trying to add new features or requirements at the last minute without adjusting the deadline.
Oh, a classic project management nightmare.
Usually, this results in defensive arguments. But Daniel didn't start a fight. He set up an alignment meeting and tied every single requested change directly back to its business impact. He essentially said, we can absolutely build this new feature, but here is the exact cost in added development time and budget.
So he removed the emotion and replaced it with data.
Exactly. And when his own engineering team pushed back on deadlines, he didn't rely on positional authority. He didn't just say, I'm the manager, so do it.
Which never works anyway.
Never. He dug for the root cause of their pushback. He asked if the delay was due to technical debt, meaning old, messy code that was slowing them down, or if the requirements were just unclear. He facilitated a discussion around technical trade-offs rather than forcing a mandate.
Across all these scenarios, Emily's email failure, Daniel's stakeholder, conflicts the URL. What the candidates are truly demonstrating is professional emotional regulation.
That is the key phrase right there.
Employers know that projects will fail, deadlines will be missed, clients will be angry. They are testing your resilience. When you stumble, do you point fingers and panic, or do you build a checklist and schedule an alignment meeting?
And once you've successfully proved you can handle your past failures and regulate your emotions, the interview shifts again. Because fixing past mistakes is only half the job.
Right. An employer ultimately wants to know if you can drive the company forward.
Exactly. That's why the interview naturally transitions away from your history and pivots to your future. And here you have to walk a very fine line between ambition and reality.
The classic prompt here is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Explaining your future goals requires a delicate balance, and it's where many candidates inadvertently reveal their naivety, don't they?
Oh, big time. Cass Thompson warns that entry-level candidates frequently say things like, I want to be a senior manager in 2 years.
Which instantly signals to the interviewer that you have no fundamental understanding of how the corporate ladder actually works, or how long it takes to master those foundational skills.
The underlying psychology of the 5-year question is actually a test of retention risk. The employer is trying to figure out if your trajectory aligns with what they can offer, or if you're going to get bored and leave in 6 months.
So how do you answer it?
The strategy is to keep your answer broad but strategically aligned. In the mock interviews, Emily stated she wanted to evolve into a content coordinator who helps guide junior staff step by step. She signaled leadership ambition, but in a measured, realistic capacity.
And Rachel said she wanted to eventually move into a VP role focused on development, but she specifically tied that goal back to the company's publicly stated focus on expanding their market growth. She intimately connected her personal future to the company's corporate future.
It shows strategic vision without showing impatience. And once you've aligned your futures, the interview inevitably reaches its final critical stage.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Do you have any questions for me?
The famous last words of any interview.
Because the way you handle this single prompt completely shifts the power dynamic of the room. It instantly turns a one-way interrogation into a mutual, peer-to-peer business consultation.
It really is the most empowering moment of the process. The absolute worst thing you can do is say, "No, I think you covered everything," and pack up your bag.
Never do that.
The sources dictate that you must always have 3 to 4 high-level questions prepared.
And to be clear, these shouldn't be logistical questions about vacation days or parking passes.
No, save those for HR later.
You need to ask questions that force the interviewer to reveal the reality of the job. You ask about success metrics, company culture, or the real structure of the team. Rachel asked a truly brilliant question in her mock interview.
Oh, I loved this one.
She asked, imagine you're looking back on this hiring decision in a year, and the person you hired absolutely exceeded your expectations. What specifically did they do?
The phrasing of that question is just phenomenal because it completely bypasses the generic HR-approved job description and forces the hiring manager to articulate their unwritten expectations. It gives you the actual rubric they will use to grade your performance.
And Daniel used his questioning time to do some serious corporate reconnaissance. He asked about the team's history and rapid turnover, and he managed to get the interviewer to admit that the IT department had burned through 3 leaders in just 4 years.
That is a massive red flag. But it is a crucial piece of intelligence for him to consider before he ever accepts an offer, because an interview is ultimately a two-way street.
You're interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you.
Exactly. You are evaluating their viability just as rigorously. You need to determine if their environment will genuinely support your growth, or if it's a toxic culture that will burn you out in 6 months. By asking targeted, insightful questions, you elevate yourself from a subordinate applicant hoping for a job to an equal professional evaluating a mutual partnership.
So what does this all mean? We started out talking about how walking into an interview feels like navigating a complex system without a manual. But by deconstructing the psychology and the strategies in these sources, we've essentially drafted one.
We really have.
For you listening right now, gearing up for your next big opportunity, the architecture of a successful interview is clear. It begins with mastering the silent pitch, leveraging the physical mechanics of a handshake and posture to trigger trust, and using small talk to prove your baseline compatibility.
And from there, it's about reducing the interviewer's cognitive load with a tight introductory pitch and using the STAR method as a funnel to concentrate your past experiences into impactful results.
It is the art of cognitive framing, really. Presenting your weaknesses and failures not as deal breakers, but as proven engines for your personal growth.
And finally, it's about flipping the script at the finish line, strategically questioning the employer to ensure they're actually worthy of your talent.
It is a highly comprehensive, effective strategy for navigating the corporate hiring process.
It is, but, considering all the tactics we've discussed today, this raises an important question for anyone preparing to step into that room.
What's that?
If modern interviewing requires so much strategic presentation, if you have to carefully frame your weaknesses, polish your anecdotes through the STAR funnel, and heavily curate your inquiries to manage the interviewer's cognitive state, how much of your truly authentic self is actually sitting at that table?
Wow, that's a great point.
Are you bringing your real personality or just a highly optimized professional avatar? And when they finally hand you that offer letter, is the company hiring the real you or simply the best presented version of you?
That is definitely a deep one to chew on before you offer your next firm handshake. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning the systems around you.